Hello, thanks for joining my screencast tonight. I'm just going to be going over some higher order functions, in particular reduce and filter. So what are higher order functions? Basically they are very powerful because they can take a function as an argument, a callback function that is, or return a function as a result. So this is really helpful because it can help you do a lot of things in JavaScript once you understand these very basic functions. So we'll start out with reduce. So reduce is a higher order function that is a bit more flexible than filter. It's not a specific list transformation like filter is, but you can customize it. So, and you can even use reduce to implement functions like filter and map and all that good stuff. So I'll start out by going through how the built-in reduce function works. So we'll take an array of numbers as a really simple example, and you can just look up how reduce works and just Google array reduce prototype and just look on MDN and it breaks it down for you. But basically it operates on an array, so you can just simply say numbers reduce dot reduce, and it takes in a function again, which is why it's a higher order function, and it has two elements here. I guess we don't even need to call them anything, but we'll have A and B, and we're going to, in this case, we just want to combine these two numbers basically. So reduce is going to look at each number in the list and do something to them. So in our case, we'll just take this first one and then add equal, plus equal to the second one. And we can just console.log A and B here so that we can see what we're getting. So here you can see the first column, 1, 3, and 6, is keeping the running total, and then the second column is showing the current element. So it seems pretty simple, but now let's implement our own version of it. So instead of having reduce on the array prototype, we'll just write our own way of doing it. So we'll just say reduce is going to be able to take in an array, and it's going to have an initial value, because that's how, well, yeah, I didn't show you, but that is how reduce works here. We didn't get an error for some reason, but you have an initial value here. That can be a problem in some cases, so important to note. So we'll say reduce takes in this numbers array, and it has an initial value here, and it's going to take in a reducer function. Awesome. So we need to write our reducer function, and that's pretty simple. And we're just going to say the reducer function takes in two elements and it sums them. That should be pretty simple. That should work, right? Because we know our reducer function is actually just going to use this secondary function to combine the two numbers that we're handling at that moment, just like we did in the previous example. So we'll say reduce is a function, and it takes in an array, an initial value, and a reducer function. Okay, so what should we do first? So, I mean, we know that, as I've said repeatedly, this is going to iterate through the numbers array. So that makes me think, okay, for loop right away. So we'll say for let I equals 0. Let is just the same as var, but it's block. It's scoped to the for block here. It's just ES6 syntax if you want to look it up. So I is less than array.length, I plus plus. Okay, we're looping through. So now we know we need to apply, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. We need to apply our reducer function to each element of the array, but I don't really know what we're going to be doing with that, so why don't we just do the, oh, we need to console log something. So let's just console log A and B here. Okay, so we know that this is going through each of the elements, 1, 2, 3, and 4, but then it's returning undefined. That could be because the reducer function actually takes in 2 values and not 1. So we need that initial value. So we could do something like initial value, which is 0. Okay, that's better, no undefined this time, but we're not really, we don't have a way of combining or keeping track of the sum as we're adding to it. So that's why we need a result variable. So we'll just we'll set result equal to initial value. How about that? Yeah. And okay. And then we'll make this result. Oops, but we need to set it equal. And we'll return the result. This should work. Oops. Assignment to a constant variable. Oops. So yeah, this is a changing variable, so you cannot say constant. That's actually a really good reason to use constant or const. It's another ES6 thing, but it tells you if you make dumb mistakes like I just did. So, okay, awesome. So we're getting the same output as we were before. So you see in the left column, the sum is being kept track of, and then in the right column, we're iterating through the value as we expect. So that is reduce. And this can be really custom, right? So we could even make these a bunch of arrays. And we could say, you know, okay, so now we have a bunch of arrays, and we can make the initial value an array, and we can run this. Oh, except that doesn't look right, and that is because of this line. You can't just add arrays, so we can do a concat b, and yeah, really easy way to get an array. So next, I want to talk about filter. It's a really similar to reduce, but we'll use an array of objects. And yeah, basically what filter does is it is going to take a callback, and it will iterate through each element of the array and then apply the filter function to each element. So if it returns true, it's going to keep the element in the array, and if it returns false, it will not keep the element in the array. So we'll just say we want to get all of the animals. So this is an array of animals, an array of objects, and they each have a type. And say, how about we try to filter the animals array to get all of the dogs. So we'll say const dogs equals animals, which is the array, dot filter. And again, you can just look up filter and MDN, see what the documentation says. But I know that it takes in this filter function. So we are going to have each animal as we're going through, and then we can return animal.type equals dog. So here we're saying, okay, if this is going to return true or false based on whether in this line type is equal to dog or cat. So if it's cat, it will return false. So let's see if this works. So we are just going to console log dogs. Awesome. So the built-in filter function works exactly as we expect. Sorry, a little hard to read, but yeah, all of these are type dog. Awesome. So let's build our own, like we did with reduce. So this is going to be very similar again, but we'll just erase this. So we want to start by writing our filter function. I guess I shouldn't have deleted that, but we'll just rewrite it. So the filter function is going to take an element, and for that element it's going to check its type and see if it equals dog, and that should be it. So exactly the same as the custom function we put in the built-in filter. So now let's write our filter. Oops. So we'll call it filter, or so we can just write out filter. It's going to take an animals array and then our filter function, so we know what's happening. So let's define this filter function, which takes in an array and a filter function as we just saw. And how should we do this? Again, probably easiest, we know that whatever we're doing is going to happen to each element in the array, so let's just make it easy for ourselves and loop through it. And okay, so now what do we do? So we know we're going to have to apply this filter function that we have to each element of the array. So maybe we should just do that and see what happens. Always a good place to start if you don't know. So we're going to just console log. Okay, so each element of the array, which are these objects, are being checked in this filter function. So for the first element, it's saying, okay, is this element's type a dog? And it says, okay, yes, so then it returns true. And then the second one, it's saying, is this element's type a cat? It says false. It says no, because those aren't equals. And then it returns false. So we know that the built-in filter function checks if something is true, and if it is true, then it will put it into this new array. So I'll call const result equals array. So here we can say const, I believe, because this is an array and it's not going to be changed even though we're adding things to it. But okay, so we'll just say, instead of console logging this, we'll say if this filter function at this array element returns true, then we can just push that element into the result array, right? And then we obviously need to return the result array. And let's see if that worked. Awesome. So here we have our dogs. So obviously this is a pretty basic intro to higher order functions, but it's very helpful. So once you kind of get a good sense of these, you can do a lot. You can pretty much do anything that you need to do in JavaScript. So that's about it. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, and thanks.